My name is Lauren. I'm a 36-year-old woman working from home. My husband, Daniel, and I got married 3 years ago. At that time, we were both 33 and wanted to have children, so we decided to see a doctor considering fertility treatments. The results showed no issues, which was a relief, but despite waiting patiently, we had no luck conceiving a baby. As we were about to give up, Daniel said, "But my mom insists we must have a successor." I sighed at his confused words. Daniel is generally a good husband, but he has a tendency to be a bit of a mama's boy and always agrees with whatever his mother says. I don't particularly like my mother-in-law. Daniel is the eldest son and has a younger sister, but my mother-in-law adores Daniel, practicing favoritism to an extreme. His sister didn't like this, so she left home early. Daniel's job involves a lot of transfers, but when we got married, he was working near his parents' home. When we were getting married, he warned me that he might get transferred, but I felt as long as we were together, I could live anywhere. However, when we rented a house near his parents' home, my mother-in-law would often come over to our house on Daniel's days off, and even while I was working from home, she would find excuses to drop by and interfere with my work, criticizing my way of doing laundry or cleaning. It's downright annoying. Additionally, every time we meet, she would ask about having a grandchild. Of course, it has to be a boy. We don't need a girl. Her presence stresses me out. I tried explaining the situation to Daniel and asked him to talk to his mother, but no matter how many times I tell him, all he says is, "My mom just wants to get along with you, Lauren," which is overly optimistic. It's not helpful to stress out someone you're trying to get along with. Originally, I was drawn to Daniel because of his optimistic character, a trait I lack in, and I felt that we balanced each other out in many areas, but we can't bridge this gap. However, 6 months ago, Daniel's job transfer was finalized and we were finally able to move away from his parents' house. Our new place is farther away from my parents' home. Although there are only farm fields around my parents' house, Daniel's new workplace is in a relatively prosperous area, similar to a regional city in Nebraska, with well-developed public transportation and infrastructure. Moreover, it takes less than an hour away from my parents' home by car. Once we moved, my stress was almost gone. I could concentrate on my work and our life became comfortable. Then, just the other day, I found out I was pregnant. Daniel and I hugged each other in joy. Being of advanced age, I do have some concerns, but this is the pregnancy we've been longing for. When we told his parents, my mother-in-law's first words were, "It's a boy, right?" Even when Daniel said we didn't know the gender yet, she insisted it had to be a boy. However, the baby turned out to be a girl. When my mother-in-law found out, she called me when Daniel was not around and said, "You're really useless. What did you marry into this family for?" Whether it was because of hormonal imbalances or I was emotionally unstable, I broke down crying. When Daniel came home and saw me crying, he got mad when I told him what happened and yelled, "Are you saying my mom is in the wrong?" And I ended up crying even more. Regardless, Daniel still cares for my health and helps me with the household chores, so he's a good husband as long as my mother-in-law isn't involved. So, I was able to deliver the baby safely. I came back home a month after giving birth in my hometown. Daniel came to pick me up. I got into his car and we headed to back home after a long while. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law was there. I didn't expect her to come to see her granddaughter, but she came anyway. I had a bad feeling about this. Yet, Daniel was oblivious and cheerfully said, "My mom came to help." And then, while my husband was in another room soothing our daughter, my mother-in-law pulled out a box of cake from the refrigerator. "This is to celebrate your childbirth. I'm sure you didn't get to enjoy any good food while you were out in the countryside for your postnatal recovery, did you?" I was annoyed by the way she said it, but tried to let it slide. "This cake costs $500, she exclaimed, handing me the box. $500? I was taken aback. I had never heard of such a pricey cake before. Nodding, my mother-in-law urged me to open it. I was curious to see what a $500 cake would look like. Excited, I placed the box on the table and opened it. But I was slightly disturbed by the smug look on my mother-in-law's face. The cake that came out of the box was not what you would expect for $500. The whipped cream was dried out, and while there were fruits on top, they were clearly canned oranges. I wondered which bakery would sell such a shoddy cake for $500. I love sweets, and I can enjoy any cake regardless of its price. Yet, this was the first time I felt such disappointment the moment I opened a cake box. However, the story with my mother-in-law's cake didn't end there. I couldn't believe my eyes. As I looked up from the cake, there she was grinning. "So, how's the $500 cake?" she asked. At that point, I lost my temper and threw the cake, box and all, into the trash. "Please leave," I shouted. Surprised by my outburst, my husband rushed into the living room. Before I could say anything, my mother-in-law started crying to my husband. "Lauren is being so mean." Then she pointed at the trash can. My husband looked at it and became furious. "You, what the hell have you done? That was a cake my mom went through all the trouble to make." As I lost the opportunity to mention the supposed $500 cake, my mother-in-law chimed in. "Yes, that's right. I made that cake for you, so it's worth $500. "Ah, so that's what it was. Of course there's no way such a cake would cost $500. Even at $50, no, even at $5, I wouldn't buy it." Everything finally made sense. There's no way any bakery would approve such a disrespectful cake. As I was processing the situation, my husband yelled out, "Lauren, apologize to Mom." It seems my husband is always on my mother-in-law's side no matter what. As I was standing there in shock, I heard our daughter, who I thought was put to sleep, crying, so I rushed to her. There was some commotion on the other side of the door, but right now, my daughter was my priority. When I finally got her to settle down and return to the living room, I found a note saying that they had gone out to eat and that I should reflect on my actions. I was stunned. I wondered if I could return to live here with my husband, but I didn't know if it would be right to run crying to my parents, but I had nowhere else to go. As I was thinking about this, I glanced at the trash can where I had thrown the cake away. It was just as I had left it, untouched. On a whim, I decided to take a picture of it. When I called my parents and told them the whole story, my father said he would come to pick me up right away. I felt sorry for my newborn daughter. We had to move again. But for the both of us, it was better than staying here. My husband, who was supposed to be out for a meal, didn't return home as quickly as expected. My father arrived first. As my father was loading our belongings into his car, my husband and my mother-in-law finally came home. They seemed surprised to see my father there and got enraged when they saw him carrying my stuff. "Where are you going? Relying on your parents again, huh? You just run to your parents the moment something goes wrong." His words were harsher than usual. It seemed he had been drinking. His face was red and he smelled of alcohol. Seeing his state, I lost my temper. "You went drinking after leaving us, your wife and your newborn daughter at home? Right now, I don't want to be in the same space as you two. That's why I decided to rely on my parents." Then, my mother-in-law, who also smelled of alcohol, interjected. "Scary, good riddance, a daughter-in-law like you." Her comments always got on my nerves. "Indeed, as you wish, I'll take my daughter and go, so please enjoy your time alone with my husband, Daniel." When I said this, my husband made a confused face, but I ignored him and got in my father's car. It seems like my father was trying to keep his emotions in check, not intervening. The next day, my husband contacted me. "Where are you? I was surprised when I woke up and found you gone." Oh right, I had forgotten because he doesn't usually drink, but he tends to forget things when he does. I sighed. "Don't you remember? You left your hungry wife and daughter at home to go out to eat with your mother, and then you came back drunk. After being treated and spoken to like that, I couldn't stay there anymore." While my husband sounded surprised and flustered, I could hear my mother-in-law in the background, and my anger from yesterday returned. "So your mother stayed over? I won't be going back to a home where such a rude person is staying." "What do you mean?" His voice lowered. "She might be your mother, but she's a stranger to me. I'm exhausted from childbirth and don't have the energy to be considerate of others. Who do you think was the cause of our infertility? It was because your mother kept visiting and stressing me out. Otherwise, there's no way I would have gotten pregnant so soon after we moved and she stopped visiting. I was relieved not to see your mother's face, but when I came back home with our daughter, your mother was there and I just can't stand this." Though I knew I was saying some hurtful things, with all the resentment I had been holding back, I couldn't stop myself. And then my husband shouted over the phone, "You're the worst. Come back right now and apologize to my mom." When he said that, it felt like time had stopped for a moment. The next words that came out of my mouth were, "What?" As if to mock him. I continued, "The reason why I'm here with our child is because of your mother's request." When I said this coldly, my husband let out a confused sound. What do you mean?" "Your mother didn't want our daughter. She's always been saying that, hasn't she? She wanted us to have a son. Well, I didn't know how serious she was, but I was sure when I saw that cake." "Cake?" "Didn't you see the chocolate plate?" "Huh?" "The chocolate plate on the cake, or did you not even look at the cake itself?" I had hit the nail on the head. The trash can where I threw out yesterday's cake was still empty. so it was probably still the way it was yesterday. With that in mind, I instructed my husband to go look in the kitchen trash can.
But there's nothing in here.
Did she get rid of the evidence in the middle of the night? Then why don't you ask your mother what was written on the chocolate plate and where she threw it away? Then I could hear their exchange on the other end of the phone. She was denying knowledge of any chocolate plate, suggesting that I was being delusional. She stubbornly refused to reveal where she discarded it. So, how will my husband respond?
She's saying she doesn't know anything about any plate.
Even my husband sounded a bit hesitant, a bit weak. Right, wouldn't it be awful if Daniel saw that plate? Even if it's a lot of trouble, you got rid of it before he saw it, right? To get rid of the evidence. I could hear my husband's voice darken. In the background, behind my confused husband, I heard my mother-in-law's voice. Why don't you hurry up and come home? Tell her to entertain me. She's a really useless daughter-in-law. At her words, my husband finally seemed to be attempting to rein in his mother. I'm going to hang up and send a text. Maybe you and your mother should read it together. Contact me again when you are ready to talk. After saying that and ending the call, I sent all the photos of the cake and plate to my husband. Within 30 minutes, my husband called back and said he would be heading over here right away. I stopped him. My father-in-law should be getting there soon. Stay there. With that, I hung up. In reality, my own father had been so enraged by my husband's behavior yesterday that he had contacted my in-laws. He had reported everything to my father-in-law. Unaware of this, my father-in-law had apologized profusely and said that he would go to my husband and have a talk. By evening, my husband and in-laws arrived at my parents' house. As soon as he arrived, my husband bowed deeply to me in apology. I don't know anything about what's been happening or what happened this time. I didn't know my mother said such things to Lauren. Looking at my seemingly repentant husband, I felt myself growing cold. Don't you think it's too late to say you didn't know? Didn't we have this conversation when we were living in our previous home? Despite that, you sided with your mother saying she just wanted to get close with me and did nothing to change her attitude towards me. At my words, my husband started to turn pale. Plus, you always said that your mom absolutely wanted us to have a son. What's that about? Are you always going to do whatever your mother says? Since you chose your mom over your wife, I guess you don't need me, do you? My husband turned pale and clung to me.
That's not it. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to.
Then, what did you mean? At my retort, my husband was at a loss for words and fell silent, looking down. Just as I thought, Daniel, you chose your mom over your own wife and daughter. A mother obsessed with her eldest son and a mama's boy. I should have realized sooner. It's no wonder your sister left home early. With a sigh, my husband retorted,
I'm not some mama's boy. I care about you too.
Then, could you really sever all ties with your mother? I fired back. At that, he fell silent. When I sighed, my mother-in-law, who was brought here by my father-in-law, yelled out, How can you say such a thing? Daniel and I are mother and son. We can never sever our ties. His father tried to calm her down, but she just wouldn't stop. To be frank, I never really liked you. I wanted a younger wife for Daniel. Really? In that case, I'll sever ties with you right now. I have divorce papers ready. If we divorce, then you and I can be strangers. Hearing this, my husband's face turned pale as he looked at me. I don't want to maintain a relationship with someone who would write these nasty things on my cake plate. Saying this, I pulled out my phone and showed everyone the picture of the plate that read, Take your daughter and leave. Upon seeing this, his father, perhaps not having been fully informed, angrily shouted at his wife, turning blue in the face.
What you did to your own daughter, you did it again to our daughter-in-law?
I was shocked to hear this. Apparently, his mother had once served a birthday cake to her daughter with the words, I don't need a daughter written on it, leading to their estrangement. Just how much she must hate women. Perhaps she thought she could get more attention by excluding the women close to her. Indeed, her son Daniel was acting just as she expected. When I handed my husband the divorce papers, he started making excuses.
We just had a child. We shouldn't be getting a divorce. My mom just went a little too far this time. She was just jealous of you. Try to understand.
Is that what you came here to say? I thought for sure you were going to tell me you were severing ties with your mother and coming back home. I'm never returning to that house. Then my father-in-law, who had been silent and pale-faced, spoke up.
Daniel, sign the divorce papers. I'm done with this family. When I get home, I'm divorcing your mother too.
What? His mother spun around at these unexpected words.
I've thought about it a few times before, but I thought it was too late for a divorce and that I just needed to be patient. But now that I see you doing the same thing to another woman, I've reached my limit. Sign our divorce paper and leave our house.
Begrudgingly, my husband signed the divorce papers under his father's direction. As a consolation, I received around $10,000 from his father. At first, I declined, but I accepted gratefully when he assured me it would be deducted from his wife's assets. My ex-in-laws really did get divorced, and his mother seemed to rely on Daniel, but he refused to take her in, blaming her for his circumstance. Indeed, the family fell out. His mother, who hadn't worked since they got married, lost all the money she received as property division after investing it all in cryptocurrency, which someone had recommended to her as an easy way to make money. I received child support from Daniel every month, and now I'm raising our daughter with the help of my parents. I'm so happy to see our daughter growing up and doing great.
My in-laws' family dumped my sister-in-law, who's now mute and bedridden, on me, and went on a vacation to Hawaii. Right before they left, my husband, Jack, said, "Taking care of her is your job. Don't slack off." The moment Jack and his family left the house, my sister-in-law sat up and said, "Okay, let's get going too." I'm Lisa, 29 years old. As a teenager, I dreamed of becoming a pop star, but eventually realized it was a fleeting dream, and before I knew it, I was in my late 20s. I started dating Jack, whom I had met through a friend, because my mother, with whom I live, kept asking when she was going to see her grandchild. Talking to Jack, I found out that he too had once dreamed of entering the entertainment industry when he was young. Despite our past aspirations, Jack now works at a prestigious trading company with its headquarters in downtown Manhattan. After graduating from college, I worked at a bank until I got married and quit. One day, Jack and I went to his parents' house. Jack has a younger sister named Lucy, who caught a fever when she was a child. Her mother thought it was just a common cold, but when the fever didn't subside, they took her to a doctor and found out it was encephalitis, caused by influenza. It was already too late, and due to the prolonged high fever, Lucy was left with brain damage and turned bedridden. Furthermore, the high fever left lingering effects on the part of her brain that controls speech, leaving her unable to speak. My mother-in-law was the one who took care of Lucy for the most part. For some reason, Lucy and I got along well, and I always looked forward to visiting Jack's family. Lucy couldn't converse verbally, so she used sign language. After becoming close with Lucy, I naturally picked up sign language as well. One day, I signed to Lucy, "We're like best friends who've known each other forever, aren't we?" To which she replied, "Yes, we are. Let's stay close friends forever." I responded, "Of course we will." However, my mother-in-law, who is the complete opposite of Lucy, was always sarcastic towards me. Jack and I live in a condo about a 30-minute drive from his parents' house, but occasionally my mother-in-law would drive over unannounced and start nitpicking on me. "Jackie's shoes are filthy. If a man's shoes are dirty, it reflects poorly on his work. It's your responsibility to keep them clean." My mother-in-law always referred to Jack as Jackie. "Make sure you always fold the laundry neatly. If you don't, Jackie will be in a bad mood." The one who raised Jack this way was none other than her. "No matter how late Jackie gets home, you must never go to bed before him, even if Jackie says it's okay for you to go to bed first." My mother-in-law would say such old-fashioned things. Jack, while we were dating, and initially after we got married, was very kind and never disagreed with me. For example, if I said I wasn't feeling well and asked him to have dinner outside, he would readily agree. If I saw a designer bag I liked, he would buy it for me the following month. However, about a year after we got married, Jack started to change. Or perhaps he returned to his original self. He started coming home late from work, always reeking of alcohol. Jack's been increasingly busy on Saturdays and Sundays, always claiming that work kept him away from home. When he would occasionally visit his parents' home, he would decline my requests to join him, which was kind of odd. One day, I decided to confront him about it. "Jack, you've become so distant lately. It feels like you're a completely different person," I said. Jack glared at me for a moment, then replied, "That's not true. You're overthinking things." "I don't think I am," I retorted. "You barely talk to me anymore." "I told you, you're overthinking it. Stop bringing this up." With that, he walked away to take a shower, ending the conversation. One day, Jack surprised me by saying, "This Sunday, I'm going home. What are you going to do?" I was taken aback, as Jack had previously always refused my company on such visits. "Wait, I can come with you this time?" I asked, to which he replied, "That's why I'm asking." "Well, of course, I'll come then. I'd like to see Lucy too," I added. Jack frowned a bit and said, "You and Lucy seem to get along really well, huh?" "Yes, we do. It feels like we've been best friends forever," I responded, noticing Jack's slight grimace at my words. On Sunday, I drove us to Jack's family home in Nebraska. We stopped at a bakery along the way to buy some pastries as a gift. Jack's mother always has a frown when she sees me, but she would light up upon receiving the pastries. When we arrived, his mother came to greet us. As usual, she frowned at my sight, almost as if she was not happy to see me. "Mother-in-law, please have some of these," I said, handing her the pastries. She snatched them from me and peered inside before replying, "Is it these pastries again? They're getting boring. But since you insist, I'll have them." Her face lit up like a child receiving a toy. "Is father around today?" he asked. Jack's father was elderly, but still worked actively. "He's out at a meeting. Why, did you need something?" she asked. "No, not really. I just had something I wanted to talk about with him," he replied. I hadn't heard anything about this from Jack. "What's going on? Did you have something to tell your father?" I asked Jack. "It's none of your business," he responded. "What do you mean? We're a married couple, aren't we? Can you just stop nagging?" Jack retorted, to which his mother added, "Exactly. If Jack doesn't want to tell you something, you shouldn't be prying." I decided not to respond, knowing that arguing with her would be fruitless. Just then, Jack's sister appeared. "Oh, Jack, you're here," she said. "Sis, perfect timing. I have something to discuss." Jack started. "What is it?" she asked. "I can take a long vacation next month. I was thinking about a family trip to Hawaii. How about you, sis?" Jack proposed. "I'll pass. I don't have a passport," she replied. I was taken aback. Jack, who was always busy with work and rarely took time off, was suggesting a trip to Hawaii. "Jack, is everything all right with your job?" "I'm only suggesting this trip because my work's going fine." My mother-in-law seemed displeased with my interference in Jack's business. Frowning deeply, she said to me, "You shouldn't meddle with decisions Jack has made. You're really nosy, aren't you?" "That's right. And Lisa, the reason I asked you here today is because I want you to take care of Lucy during the time we're on vacation." I was momentarily taken aback. But then I realized that staying here with Lucy would be much more enjoyable than going on a trip to Hawaii with my mother-in-law. "Okay, I will take care of Lucy. But if that was the case, you didn't need to bring me all the way here to tell me that, did you?" "I figured if I told you in front of my mother, you'd understand quicker," Jack replied. He must have assumed I'd resist when I found out I couldn't go to Hawaii. And if I did, he wanted my mother-in-law to forcefully convince me. It was clear to me that this was his intent. I was left feeling dumbfounded and left the room to head to Lucy's room. Lucy looked delighted to see me. "It's been a while. How have you been?" "I'm good. What brings you here today?" Jack asked me to come with him to our parents' house, so I did. But it's strange. Before, whenever Jack came here, he used to tell me I couldn't come along. My brother is definitely hiding something. He's always been secretive. So, apparently, he's going to Hawaii next month. But I'll be staying back. I think that's better, though. As I said this with a smile, Lucy also replied with a grin. In that case, you should come over and stay here. Sure, I'll do that. After that, Lucy and I had a great time chatting. I always wondered why Lucy and my mother-in-law were so different. About an hour later, Jack came to get me, and we headed home. At that time, Lucy gave me a slight wink. She revealed a shocking truth, and an even more shocking plan to me. A month later, on the day of the Hawaii trip, Jack and I went to his parents' house. Although I wasn't going to Hawaii, I brought my luggage to stay at my in-laws for a week with Lucy. I took the luggage to Lucy's room. It's finally happening, Lucy said, flashing a playful grin. When I returned to the living room, everyone going to Hawaii was already there. It seemed that Jack's father wasn't going, as he wasn't present. As the departure time neared, the entire family, with Jack's voice rising above the rest, chimed in. Taking care of Lucy is your job. Don't slack off. And even my mother-in-law added, Please get along well with Lucy. It's better for you to stay here, isn't it? If anything happens to Lucy, it's all your fault. We'll hold you responsible. It was absurd for someone who was about to abandon their immobile sister for a vacation in Hawaii to say these words. But I did not react at all. It didn't matter what Jack said. I wasn't in the mood to see them off, so I returned to Lucy's room. It was at that very moment. Lucy sprang up energetically from her bed and called out to me. Come on, let's get going. This echoed a conversation we'd had just the other day when Lucy confessed. You know, I can actually walk. And with walking came the ability to converse. Since when? I asked. Since last year, I suppose. Why have you been hiding this from the rest of the family? With that, Lucy began sharing an unexpected tale. Actually, my father and mother are both remarried. I'm my dad's child from his previous marriage, and my sister and brother are from my mom's side. I was surprised, but considering how distant and cold my mother-in-law usually was towards Lucy, I couldn't help but think, I thought so. Is that so? Yeah, my mom despises me. And I didn't want to talk to her, so I pretended that I couldn't. And your father? Dad knows everything. He's always on my side. I see. That's why, regarding this trip to Hawaii, I'm thinking we should go too. Huh? What do you mean? I mean, I'm planning to go to Hawaii on the same day with you. We'll even stay at the same resort. Lucy said, with a sparkle in her eye, which caught me completely off guard. What? I'd be thrilled to go to Hawaii with you, Lucy, but do you even have a passport? Of course. I secretly got my passport last month. And don't worry about the expenses. My dad is covering our plane tickets and the resort, including yours. I see. I'm really looking forward to this. And that's how we ended up here today. When Lucy and I arrived at the airport via taxi, my father-in-law was there, waiting to see us off. Lisa, it's been a while. I know it must be surprising, but I hope you enjoy the trip to Hawaii. Thank you, father-in-law. I feel guilty for all the plane tickets and resort fees you've covered. Ha! Don't worry about it. As long as you two have fun, I'm happy. Thank you for your kindness. After that, We boarded a plane from a different airline than my husband's family. We landed in Hawaii early in the morning. We took a taxi from the airport and checked into the resort hotel. Lucy and I were sharing a room. I mentioned to Lucy, "Your father seems pretty well traveled." "Yeah, he's been on several international business trips. He's even been to Hawaii a few times." "So, what's the plan?" "I'm guessing my mom and everyone will dine at the restaurant here tonight. I'm thinking of surprising them." "That sounds like fun. I'm excited. Should we get some rest to recover from getting jet-lagged?" "That sounds like a good idea. I couldn't sleep at all on the plane." After taking a shower, we climbed into bed and quickly fell asleep. We woke up around late afternoon, close to 4 o'clock. Lucy was already awake, starting to wear makeup. "I'm sorry, I slept too much." "No, don't worry about it. I just woke up too. We really had a good sleep, didn't we?" Fully recharged and ready for our battle. Around 7 o'clock, I said to Lucy, "I'll go and see and check the restaurant." As I was looking for Jack and his party from the shadows near the entrance of the restaurant, I found them, dining joyfully in a far-off spot. I was too far away from them, so I decided to venture deeper into the restaurant. From my position, all I could see was their backs, and it was hard to identify anyone. But I spotted the back of a young woman that I didn't recognize. There wasn't any such woman when they had left Jack's parents' house. Upon seeing this, I was taken aback, nearly letting out a loud gasp, but I managed to suppress it. When I strained my ears, I could intermittently hear Jack and my mother-in-law's voices. "I'm glad it's not that woman today." "Yeah, I really drew the short straw. She's tainted my family record." If only we had an elegant daughter like her from the start. "I want to divorce her and start fresh soon." Try to find a reason for the divorce and extract a hefty alimony from that woman. "Even without a cause for the divorce, it's fine. I can fabricate as many as I want. She's so bad that I want to throw her in the trash. I want to see my grandchild from you and her soon." My mother-in-law was giving the woman a smile that she had never shown me before. I was driven by the urge to step forward and see the woman's face, but I held it in, returned to my room, and told Lucy. "That took a while. I'm sorry. I saw something shocking. Jack brought a woman that I've never seen before." "What?" I was about to scream. Jack and my mother-in-law were continuously bad-mouthing me, and Jack even said he would find a reason for divorce. That's terrible. Jack called me a bad catch, but seeing him with another woman, I felt relieved. Now I can divorce him outright. That's a good thing. Shall we make our entrance then? Lucy and I headed towards the restaurant hall. When we entered to the restaurant, we requested to sit near Jack's table and were able to get a seat quite close to them. They didn't notice our arrival. As we were sitting quite close, we could hear their conversation well, which was still filled with derogatory comments about me. I was amazed and ended up giving a bitter smile at how they could badmouth me indefinitely. Seeing my face, Lucy gave a nod with a smile. That was a cue for us to begin our counterattack. I stood up from my seat, stepped forward towards Jack, and shouted, "Are you all having a good time?" I'll never forget the look on Jack and my mother-in-law's faces at that moment. Their mouths agape and eyes wide open. They froze for a few seconds. After a few seconds, my mother-in-law finally spoke. "Why are you here? And how did Lucy get here without a wheelchair?" At her words, Lucy stood up, gave mother-in-law a smile, and said, "I don't need a wheelchair." Once again, they were stunned. Thanks to you, my body and speech have returned to normal. I must have caused you quite a bit of trouble for a long time. Lucy, when did you regain your ability to speak? I wonder when that was. Maybe last year? Then why did you hide it until now? Because it was better if you guys continued to believe that I couldn't speak. You and Jack were speaking ill of me earlier, weren't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale in an instant. What do you mean? She asked. Yeah, we weren't saying anything bad about you, Lisa, Jack retorted. That won't work. I recorded everything on my phone. Do you want me to play it back right now? I countered. My mother-in-law fell silent, but Jack stood up. Lisa, you've been causing me trouble all this time, and now you're making these outrageous claims? He barked. Jack was the one making absurd claims, so I retaliated. Once I returned back home, I'll immediately contact my lawyer to initiate our divorce procedure. You can't deny the fact that you're on a vacation abroad with another woman. Plus, you described getting with me as drawing a blank lottery ticket, so I expect you to demonstrate sincerity by paying a hefty compensation for that comment, I declared. At my words, my mother-in-law seemed to acknowledge her defeat, and her attitude abruptly changed. Lisa, dear, I really like you. Please, try to get along with Jack. This woman is not involved with Jack, she pleaded. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Since I am a blank lottery ticket, I cannot live with Jack. Please, enjoy your time with this woman. Oh, and I might also seek compensation from her. Isn't that exciting? I smirked. The woman in question turned pale and began to tremble upon hearing my words. Unfazed by the public gaze, Jack fell to his knees and pleaded. Lisa, I beg you, don't make this a big deal. My company has strict rules about this, he implored. What's that? You don't sound sorry at all, I replied. Jack appeared taken aback, then tried again. Lisa, I beg you, forgive me. If my company finds out, I'll lose my job, he confessed. Though your plea sounds better now, I will never forgive you. You are married, and yet here you are on an overseas trip with another woman, I said firmly. Upon hearing my words, my mother-in-law also fell to her knees next to Jack, pleading. Please, forgive my son, she implored, tears streaming down her face. By this time, all the other customers were watching us, and the restaurant manager started walking towards our table. Seeing this, I got up and said, Well, Lucy and I will head back to our room. You all enjoy your Hawaiian vacation. I guess things will get a bit difficult when you get back home. Hearing this, Jack, crying, shouted at the top of his lungs. Please forgive me! I can't afford to pay any compensation! At his loud outburst, the restaurant manager frowned, instructed something to a nearby staff member, and then briskly told Jack something. It was a polite way of telling him that he was disturbing the other guests and needed to leave. However, Jack was taken aback, not understanding the manager's words. Soon, 2 buffed-up security guards arrived and hauled Jack away. Jack was sobbing and struggling, but he was no match for the 2 bulky men. My mother-in-law and the woman were dumbfounded, unable to utter a word. While Lucy and I were also surprised by the turn of events, I thought Jack got what he deserved. A week later, Lucy and I returned home. Jack was quickly released and seemed to have returned to his room. However, I later heard that he had been in a state of shock since returning to his room and had kept to himself until the end of the trip. The day after I returned home, I went to the law firm where my old college friend worked to request for a divorce proceeding. Unfortunately, my friend was not present, but a female lawyer was assigned to me, who was very easy to talk to, and I was able to explain everything that had happened. After listening to my story, she assured me that a divorce was possible, that I could claim alimony, and that she would investigate the woman who was with Jack in Hawaii before determining whether I could claim alimony from her as well. A month later, the female lawyer contacted me and informed me that it had been proved that Jack had been dating the other woman for about 6 months. Hence, she said it was possible for me to demand alimony from this woman too. I requested the female lawyer, please squeeze as much alimony as you can from Jack and his woman. She smiled and nodded. 2 months later, I was officially divorced, and into my bank account was deposited the alimony from the two. I mumbled as I saw the amount. And that's karma for calling me a blank lottery ticket. 3 months later, Jack and my mother-in-law suddenly visited my place. Despite it being only 3 months, they had lost a lot of weight and looked completely haggard. I asked them, "What do you want? I don't want to see your faces." Jack replied in a thin voice, "I'm sorry. Could you lend me some money? I've lost my job, and the woman ran away. I don't even have money for food." My mother-in-law also spoke in a whisper. "I've divorced my husband too. I don't have money. Please, I beg you." My mother-in-law was in tears. I responded, "Too bad. I have absolutely no obligation to help you, and even if I did, I would never help you guys out. Now, please leave." After they left, I sprinkled a large amount of salt at my entrance to get rid of bad energy from my house.